Throughout 2015, my time was primarily divided between two things: making analytical videos and watching analytical videos. In that regard, it was a very exciting year, rife with content which pushes the medium forward, both by perfecting the techniques which have been made popular for years now, while also inventing new ones, and slowly elevating the medium into a true art form. I could go on all day about all the great videos that came out last year, and if you check out my list of liked videos on my main channel, then you'll be treated to a few hundred of them. Or should that overwhelm you, you can check out the more curated list of honorable mentions in the description. For now though, I'd like to take some time to talk about the top 10 analysis videos of 2015 and what made each of them so spectacular. There aren't any rules in particular about what constitutes an analysis video here. In fact, I actually just made a list of my favorite YouTube videos, and it happened that all of them were analytical, so I figured I should make that clear in the video title. There's also no limit to how many videos can come from the same author, though I only ended up putting 2 in here that came from the same guy. The only preventative rule is that I'm not allowed to include any of my own videos, which I of course hold in the utmost regard and recommend to everyone. So let's get listing. Number 10. YouTube: The Medium is the Message by Nerdwriter. If I could name just one YouTube analyst who made an enormous splash this year with their transition into full-time video production, it would be Nerdwriter. This dude came out swinging with a consistent weekly barrage of top-class analysis without limiting himself to any one medium or gimmick, effortlessly leaping between a more diverse set of subject matters than anyone I've ever seen before, and still managing to find explosive success with his results. Moreover, of any analyst on YouTube who decides to write essay-style posts without resorting to comedy to keep their videos interesting, Nerdwriter has developed by far the most clean and engaging editing style, with his subtly dramatic line delivery and not so subtly dramatic soundtrack choices and squeaky clean use of text and graphics, leaving me quaking in my boots at the realization that I seriously need to step up my game. Of all of the fantastic and thought-provoking content that this guy generated though, the most interesting of them all was an analysis of the format itself, one which posits that the medium of YouTube videos is currently in the process of finding its identity, and that we may someday look back on this era in search of the medium's true masterpieces. I would go so far as to say that this video served as a sort of guideline for me in making this list, as I searched for videos which not only succeeded at being awesome videos, but succeeded in being the kinds of things which could only ever really exist on YouTube to begin with. If the medium is indeed the message, then there must be an interplay of elements. After all, the greatest masterpieces in any medium are those which utilize their medium to the fullest. Incidentally, the entire concept of a top 10 list of the best YouTube videos is just about the most Inception tier YouTube meta clusterfuck imaginable. Number 9. Cool Cat Learns Fair Use by YMS. Speaking of the medium is the message, here's a video that's about as integral to the cultural artistic movement known as YouTube as any piece of protest art has ever been. In fact, in a broad sense, this video is really about the battle for legitimacy which YouTube analysis videos are fighting against the authoritarian pressures of old media, and no one seems to be fighting in the vanguard of that battle more so than Adam Johnston of Your Movie Sucks. In an internet overflowing with comedic long-form reviews of terrible movies, YMS Cool Cat Saves the Kids was the standout of 2015, having spawned its own share of memes and references which quickly permeated the small subset of culture to which it belongs. But the most interesting part of its story came later in the year. Thanks to the attention which YMS brought to the film, not only did Adam find himself in growing contact with the film's creator, Daddy Derek, and inspire the Cool Cat Twitter account to engage its audience with surprising openness, it also alerted the greater YouTube reviewer populace to the film's existence. And then things got ugly. After Daddy Derek issued fraudulent takedowns of various Cool Cat reviews and then asked Adam to come to his defense, even going so far as to post his own 30-minute woefully inaccurate opinion piece on the nature of copyright infringement, Adam crushed him with one of the most cathartic rebuttals in internet history. For YouTube content creators who have been dealing with copyright takedowns for years, and for the fans who have had their favorite videos disappear before their eyes time and time again, the empowering information of Adam's video offers not only absolution, but a rallying cry to push back against old media and to fight for the legitimacy of analysis videos as a medium. It helps that this video is also in itself a startlingly thorough analysis of Daddy Derek's ignorant video, which would have made it worth the runtime in its own right. Number 8. How Design Trends Ruin Great Games by Super Bunny Hop. Another YouTuber who had a consistently fantastic year of content was the games journalism idea factory known as Super Bunny Hop. While I found myself taking issue with the way that George handles his narration, always sounding so jaded that you literally can't tell when he's praising something and when he's complaining about it, I nonetheless think that no one has done more to get me thinking about games over the past year than George Weidman. Between in-depth journalistic efforts which brought him media attention thanks to fraudulent Konami takedowns, countless consumer advocacy videos that cut through the bullshit of the game's media hype machine, an endless series of reviews and short-form analytical content, as well as full-on franchise overviews of The Witcher and a glowing classics analysis of Resident Evil and its remakes, Weidman seemed to never run out of cool and interesting ideas over the course of the year, and I find it difficult to imagine that he finds much time for sleep. However, I'm not awarding YouTubers for their consistency here per se, and it was difficult to think of one Super Bunny Hop video that stood out from the others as something worthy of this list. Ultimately, I chose the one which had gotten me thinking the most over the course of the year, and which I think raises a criminally under-recognized point, which is, put simply, that the control systems of video games have gotten way too homogenized. It reflects poorly on the artistic quality of the medium to see all of its high-budget titles putting the same mask on time and time again, and George raises the important question of whether making every game as buttery, smoothly playable as the last is actually the best way forward. As someone who spends a lot of time looking back at games history, it really gave me something to look for and drink in when approaching older games, and a new idealistic battlefront to take part on when addressing my concerns for the future. Number 7. Akira Kurosawa Composing Movement by Every Frame a Painting. If you care about films, how they're made, and what makes the great ones great, then the entire videography of Every Frame a Painting is required viewing. Each one contains golden nuggets of insight which could not only help you to appreciate the art of cinema, but which ought to be mandatory coursework in any filmmaker's education. My brother graduated with a bachelor's in film studies this year and said that Tony's videos were often more educational than any of his classes, which is either high praise for the channel or a damning indictment of just how little attention is given to the true artistry of film craft. Tony's Kurosawa video would be worth recommending even if you turned the sound off, as it curates countless breathtaking shots from one of the all-time masters of film, but his analysis of those cuts will leave you wondering why you bother watching half of the boring-ass shit that you put yourself through every Hollywood blockbuster season. No one seems to have their fist clenched around the still-beating heart of cinema the way that Tony does, and his videos almost feel like a desperate drive to jumpstart it back to life. If nothing else, this video will make you realize that you no longer care how lengthy Kurosawa's films are, you seriously want to watch them. Number 6. Creepy Obsessive Nerd Love Django Uncomplained and Tasteful Understated Nerd Rage Uncomfort by Mr. Beatong. Mr. Beatong is my favorite analytical YouTuber, and in my opinion, the best essayist on the website, with an inimitable flow to his writing that arrests all of my attention and has inspired some of my deepest thoughts about art, to the point that I'd say he's been monumental in shaping my tastes over the years that I've been following him. Mr. Beatong only released 3 videos this year, but of the 2 which came out towards the start, I couldn't pick a favorite. His tasteful, understated nerd rage video on the subject of hoping to be made uncomfortable by game characters fell into the taste-making category for me. It's a straightforward head nodder, a video which convinced me of something that I wanted, which I may not have otherwise been able to put into words, simply to be confronted with characters whom I'm given pause to decide if I really want to root for, and to see fictional stories imbued with a sense of historicity. Creepy Obsessive Nerd Love, meanwhile, provides an overall stellar analysis of the film Django Unchained through its selective use of language, and presents its literary content on the subject of slavery by way of a fictional beef between Beatong and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. My favorite takeaway from this video as an analyst is Beatong's approach of trying to understand a film through the parts of it that he doesn't understand, and how his deconstruction of a simple, confusing phrase unravels the entire meaning of the film's narrative arc. Number 5. Why Are You So Angry? By Innuendo Studios. Ian Danskin made a huge splash on YouTube last year with his analytical profiling of the career and personality of controversial gaming figure Phil Fish. Then, following a successful Kickstarter campaign to get him working on videos full-time, he made his triumphant return to YouTube this year with a string of fantastic videos, most important among them a 6-part, hour-long series which used the controversy surrounding Anita Sarkeesian and the circus of the previous year's Gamergate fiasco as a lens through which to break down and psychoanalyze the entire nature of the internet hate machine. There were innumerable ways in which this series could have gone wrong, just by leaning too hard on a straw man, or by condescending to its audience, or simply by way of an improper understanding of psychology. But Ian somehow deftly constructed the most thorough and downright interesting possible breakdown of why people on the internet get so damn angry about shit, and why that anger can blow up into such widespread and dangerous controversy. Whether you take any of it as gospel truth, or come in and walk out with a pocket full of doubts, I would absolutely consider these videos to be worthwhile for everyone, if only as an excellent tool for self-reflection, and for coming to some decisions about how you would like to present yourself as a member of society. Number 4. Wrestling Isn't Wrestling by Max Landis. There were two videos in 2015 which seamlessly blended analysis and storytelling as a means of explaining the beauty inherent in some niche thing that kicks ass. One was Innuendo Studios' fantastic video on Super Smash Bros. As a spectator sport, and the other was the high-budget and high-concept masterwork of Max Landis' Wrestling Isn't Wrestling. In some ways, Wrestling Isn't Wrestling is just a historical recounting of the entire narrative of the WWE character Triple H, but in reality, the way that Max draws a logical through line across the complex and chaotic web of WWE storytelling causes the video to become its own story in itself. It streamlines 20 years of reality into 20 minutes of pure drama, heightening the wrestling medium's highs to accentuate just what it is that attracts people to this maddening meta-narrative, while explaining it so that a layman could appreciate what's going on. The visual representation of Max's story is constantly hilarious, with more effort put into its filmography than anything else on YouTube, but without deviating from an unquestionably YouTubian tone. It's also rife with Easter eggs for wrestling fans and Max Landis fans alike, and comes together to share a message about the nature of great characterization and meaningful storytelling which will never cease to be relevant. Number 3. Best Anime Ever Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann by Best Guy Ever. The best video ever about the best anime ever comes in two parts, one short and one very long, between which I can't decide a favorite. Part 1 opens deceptively before launching into the most creative and emotional take on a review which I've ever seen. That is, a summary of Guy's reactions to all of the show's major scenes, presented as a sort of stop-motion picture diary overlaid onto an AMV, which not only communicates just how gripping the show is as an emotional roller coaster, but also how much impact it had on Guy as a person, as he literally transforms from a nerdy teenager into a badass beefy man through some very clever costuming. But if Part 1 is the year's best reviewer guitar solo, then Part 2 is the bass and drums, an epic-length analytical breakdown of the show's greatness which never skimps for a moment on tightly edited audiovisual presentation and gags which are as funny as the actual analysis is clever. YouTube doesn't have any kind of shortage in the realm of highly comedic and tightly edited media reviews, but those on this echelon of quality remain woefully scarce. We may not have gotten a new Plinkett review this year, but at least we got Best Guy Ever. Number 2. What Ya Gonna Do by Endless Jess. If there is a single person on YouTube who can definitively be considered an artist, and who is doing things with the mediums of video reviews and analysis which remain years ahead of the curve, then that person is Jesse Wood. This year, the Endless One produced no shortage of fantastic videos which I would have loved to feature on this list, but I had to single this one out for the sheer dramatic impact which it carried in its unexpectedly gripping plot twist. First, some context. Early into October, Endless Jess released a 15-minute video commenting on the controversy which had sprung up months earlier surrounding some supposedly racist comments from former wrestler Hulk Hogan. Jesse's video consisted mostly of a very solid rant about the ridiculousness of our culture's growing trend of overblown political correctness witch hunts, and it would have been perfectly solid if that's all it had going for it. But then, a few days later, Jesse released a 30-minute version of the same video, which had been meant as the proper upload from the beginning, but had been edited down for the sake of making an actually accessible video about a potentially relevant topic. In the longer version, Jesse's rant is overlaid with a narrative about just how often he was distracted in the process of putting the video together, to the point that it took him more than 3 months to create a video that should have been done in days. The video dives randomly into maddening segments of Hogan singing a repetitive song counting down the days of the week, while Jesse throws in photos and footage of all the other things that he was doing instead of working on the video, from other videos that he put out in the meantime, to adventures that he went on with his friends, and so on. Finally, after more than 20 40 minutes of losing his mind in the midst of trying to get this video done, he is visited by his own dissociative identity of Hulk Hogan to reveal the truth of what's been holding him up from making these videos. I don't want to spoil the ending for you, but the truth is an unexpectedly emotional recontextualization of the entire video, set to the most perfect usage of Runaway by Kanye West which will ever exist. If you're interested in seeing how a simple YouTube rant about social issues can morph into a legitimately personal and emotional narrative, then I encourage you to watch this video. Like all of Jesse's work, it is a challenging experience, but one with an incredible payoff. Number 1. Horseshoe Finale by Drowning in Horseshoes. Speaking of incredible payoffs, there was no way that I could avoid giving both of my top 2 spots to the work of Jesse Wood, when the hour and 40-minute long Horseshoe Finale came out in the early part of 2015. There's no way around it though, I can't really recommend this video to anyone who isn't willing to watch all of the videos leading up to it, as it basically constitutes one ridiculously enormous end zone dance after the sequence of touchdowns that was Jesse's Drowning in Horseshoes content, a disgustingly well-made series of analysis videos about My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, which morphed into a dense and, for anyone not paying an unhealthy amount of attention, most likely confusing narrative. If there has ever been a YouTube review which deserves to be considered a work of auteurism, then this is the one. Having spent around 9 months in development and meticulously crafted down to a level of detail that would inspire frame-by-frame critique from a capable analyst, Jesse's video is the most self-important, up-its-own-ass, grandiose, exciting, incomprehensible, incredible, game-changing, life-destroying piece of YouTube history to ever be dropped ceremoniously between a crowd so niche that the thought of it ever escaping into the world to be appreciated on the level of academia would be as hilarious as it is depressing for those who understand its greatness. If there is an eventuality to YouTube as an artistic medium in the way that House of Leaves might have been an eventuality for books, or in the way that Homestuck was an eventuality for webcomics, then that eventuality may have been embodied in the Horseshoe Saga. I consider it a distinct and personal privilege that I can acknowledge it here, even if no one else ever probably will. So that wraps up my top 10 favorite analytical YouTube videos of 2015, and I'm more than excited about what I might get to see in the coming year. Once again, you can check the description for links to all of these, as well as for a long list of honorable mentions, and you can visit my liked list on my Digibro channel for hundreds more. If you want to see all of the fantastic videos that I left off because I'm the one who made them, then be sure to head over to my main channel, and as always, thanks again for watching.